Welcome to Today in Putnam County, hosted by Putnam County Mayor Randy Porter, the show that takes a look at the events and what's happening all around Putnam County, as well as interviews with local, community, and business leaders. And now, sharing his insights and experience, here's Today in Putnam County with County Mayor Randy Porter.
On the second half of our show today, I wanted to interview the brains behind my show, I call her. I've been doing this show for a little over 7 years now, and when you do a radio show, there's got to be a lot of editing going through it, especially when I'm the host, and she's really good. She's a perfectionist behind it, and we call her Rae Rae. It's actually Erika Goforth.
Yes.
Thanks for being on the show today.
Thanks for inviting me on the show. I don't know if I can take all credit for your show because you do great on your own. I just make it cleaned up a little bit.
I'll pay you afterwards for saying all that.
It's true. It's true.
I want to know where Rae Rae came from.
So Rae Rae come from, my name is actually Erika Rae. I'm a third generation Rae. My poppy was a Rae. My dad was a Rae. And then when I came along, they just added Rae to my name with an R-A-E instead of a Y to make it kind of more feminine. And when I got in the business, you read my thing. I wasn't supposed to be in radio,
right?
And when I started, Freak said, well, what do you want to go by? Because technically Freaky Dave hired me. We'll give him a little credit there. And I said, well, I don't want to go by Erika. People, they look you up and they track you down and stalk you. So he said, well, what's your middle name? And I said, Rae. And then he said, well, let's call you Rae Rae. And I said, well, why two Rays? And he said, well, one's just too short. So that's kind of how that came about. Rae Rae kind of stuck. And for the longest time, people that worked in our building did not even know my real name is Erika. Like, it was bizarre. Actually, Angie came in on my birthday one year, dropped off cupcakes, and the girl up front, she said, hey, these are for Erika. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. Nobody by that name works here. And she said, yeah, she does. So it's kind of funny. Nobody in the office calls me Erika. It's always, hey, Rae Rae. And then people in the business, they just call me Rae Rae and I answered anything. So.
Yeah, we don't even think about it. And I had Angie, your aunt.
My cousin. Her and I are first cousins, yeah.
She works in the mayor's office, and that's how I knew I had to ask her what your real name was.
Yeah, it happens. It's all right.
So you have your own radio show we'll talk about in a few minutes, but you do the editing. Mm-hmm. Before we started doing the video and everything, it was all just radio. We're recording over at the station, and you were doing the editing. And one thing I found funny, you start noticing things when you listen to your own show about what you do. Did I say or did I do something? I'm a breather, is what you called it, I think.
Yes,
so
you are.
You hear my breathing in the mic. You are such a perfectionist that you went back and you cut out all those breaths that you hear in the mic out of a 30-minute show. That is crazy.
I do. And, and I leave some in there. I don't want your show to sound too produced, so I don't take them all out, but I take majority out. I just think it sounds better to the ear when you're listening back to it. Because, being in radio, you focus on just the audio for the listening ear. And if I'm listening to a podcast, I don't like all the breaths in it. And if you can take out some of the ums and uhs, I'm going to do that because it's an easy edit and it's just better. It's a better program. We want to put out a good product for you and, you make it easy for us. And yeah, I enjoy doing your show, by the way, every week.
Well,
so it's funny. It's going to be funny editing this, being on the show and then going back and editing. So that's going to be interesting.
Have to let David edit you then.
Maybe, because it's going to be like, I'm never on this side of things. I'm always on the back end of things. So it's kind of fun.
Well, you've done a great job. I never dreamed I'd be doing a radio show, and several of you taught me into it, and that's been 7.5 years.
I can't believe it's been that long. I remember your first show.
I do too. And do you remember who the guest was?
Wasn't it Eagles Point? Shops at Eagles Point. That's what I cannot think of the developers. But yes, I remember that show. And I remember bringing them all in, and it was kind of a big deal, not only because it was your first one, but it was the big announcement.
Shops at Eagle Point. So I just had Mike. He's the same developer on Target and Home Depot.
I didn't know that.
I just saw him. We had the groundbreaking the other day, and I said, do you remember being on my radio show? And he said, I do. He said, I said, that was the very first one that I had. And I thought, wow, this is pretty neat to get to interview these folks and find out stuff. But 7 years has really went by in a hurry.
It really has. It's been a lot of fun.
It has.
Yeah, when you're having fun, it flies by.
It's not really a job when you're having fun. Let's talk about you.
Do we have to? No, I'm just kidding.
So you didn't start out wanting to be in radio, did you?
No. I grew up in a small town in Virginia, rural Virginia. It was a big deal my senior year of high school. We got a Walmart.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's a big deal,
that was
right?
a big deal. So before that, you had to drive an hour to go to Walmart. And they always said, so going back a little bit, in the 4th grade, I was runner-up at the spelling bee. And my teacher was like, you're really good at a microphone. You should really think about public speaking for a job. And this is like back in the 90s. And you're like, 4th grade, why would I think about college and stuff like that? Well, then I go on and middle school rolls around, all the 4-H competitions, I would win the public speaking ones. And they would be like, you're a good public speaker. You need to do something in that realm. Well, I also loved sports. Like I was like, I want to do sports broadcasting, and I kind of go with that all the way through the rest of middle school into high school. And I start looking at colleges, and like I have family here. We've already mentioned that. Yeah. So I spent a lot of summers in Cookeville, but I didn't really know a ton about Cookeville. And my older brother, he went to Tech and stayed here. And when I was looking at colleges, I was, looking at broadcast journalism, and just so happens Middle Tennessee State University pops up on the thing, and my mom and dad are like, you're close to family, you're close to your brother, if you want to go that way, go that way. Well, that's 6 hours away from home. Did I want to do that? I decided to pull the plug and go, and I moved to Murfreesboro, and in 2007, I graduated in 2010, and that whole time I'm thinking TV broadcasting,
You're not a Mitsu, are you?
I am. Yeah. Really right or at lunch.
I really liked you.
Oh, I'm so. And the thing, that's another funny thing. When I moved to Cookeville, everybody's like, don't you remember when they were in the same conference and they were big rivals? And I'm like, I had no clue, but yeah, I had a great time at MTSU, and they have a great program down there.
Do.
And the whole time I'm down there, I take one radio class because I needed like a extra credit for, mass comm degree. And one of my roommates, I lived with identical triplets from Chicago in college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it was me plus them. We taught each other a lot of cultural things, them being raised in Chicago and me being raised in the rural Virginia. And one of my roommates was like, hey, let's the radio, we can do radio for an hour a week. Let's have a show. And I thought, why would we do that? Okay, it'd be fun. So we get on WMTS 88.3, and we have a 1 hour a week radio show called Pop Rocks and Coke, and we had fun with it. It went serious. She wasn't even a mass comm major. She was a fashion major, but we had fun with it. And then afterwards, I finished my degree. I moved to Cookeville. So in the meantime, my parents moved to Cookeville so I can get in-state tuition, because paying out-of-state tuition is tough. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So they moved my sophomore year of college to Cookeville. So I'm spending a little bit of time here, but still don't really know things or people. And I spent one summer here. I had to go back to MTSU in the fall of 2010 for one class. And I moved to Cookeville. My roommates from Chicago graduated. They were a year older than me. And my dad said, well, you got to get a summer job. Yeah. And I was like, okay. And I just kind of put it off a week or two. And then he comes home one day and he's like, hey, the radio station needs somebody to read the obituaries. And I was like, what?
Everybody starts with the obituaries, don't you?
Apparently.
We were just talking about Sheila, and I had Sheila and Jason on an earlier show, and that's one of the things she was talking about. She started reading obituaries.
So I'm like, I go apply just because I'm like, I want my dad off my back about this. I really don't think I'm going to get the job. And when I drop off my resume, Freak happens to be in the, front area there, and he intercepts my resume, and about 2 days later, he calls me and says, would you like to do a show on, at the time, Magic 98.5. Yeah. I need an overnight person. And I said, I know nothing about radio. I'm TV. I'm TV. And he's like, why don't you just come in and try it? So I kind of audition, I guess, and I get in there, and I'm not great. I mean, he might tell you I'm better than I was, but I was terrible. I can't listen to the playback of those first few years. It's like
nobody thinks they
I'm
sound
awful,
good, though.
And this whole time I'm still thinking I'm going TV as soon as I get done with college, because I already had an internship lined up at Channel 5 with Hope Hines. So I was like, I'm still going TV route, Well, I'll never forget. I'm working here, and then I'm also trying in the fall go to school at MTSU and intern in Nashville. So I had no life.
Wow.
Of 2010, fall of 2010. And the cool thing is, I think what flipped the script for me is that same semester, I also had Chris Clark as a professor. I was his first class. So it's funny because all of these
had to be great.
Oh, it was awesome because I guess I really didn't realize it at the time, but a lot of people in my class are from the area, and they're like, "We grew up watching him. He's like
Yeah.
royalty," and I'm just like. I just
You didn't know
I
him
didn't know who
either.
he was,
Yeah.
but we were his first class, and he was so tough. Like he criticized everybody's films, and it was advanced reporting, so you're shooting your own work, you're reporting your own things, you're editing, and he would criticize every one of you in class, and it built up a tough skin that I think
Yeah.
looking back now, it's really good for radio too. You got to have that same thing. But I'll never forget, we were doing live broadcast. We were doing live 6 o'clock news. We did them every Monday, Thursday, Friday, I think it was. I was the news anchor, and he's in my ear, and we're on a break, and he says in my ear, "Erika, don't be so joyful about a terrorist attack." And I'm like, did it come across like that? That's not what I was going for. And he's like, no, you're just a little too cheery there. Let's, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I knew then that probably wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But then I thought, what am I supposed to do? I went 3.5 years of TV, and I came home and told my mom, I think I might have just wasted my whole college career. And she's like, well, what's wrong with your job that pays you? And I'm like, well, can I do that? Can I just flip like that? She's like, why not? And I said, I can do this. This is the same as TV. It's just audio and not video.
Yeah.
And then I just kind of worked it up, and I've been there ever since. So in July, it will be 15 years of being at the radio station.
Wow.
So yeah, it's been a whirlwind to get here, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
So you do a midday show on Kiss FM
Yes.
now, right?
Yes. Yep.
And so the music that's being played on Kiss FM, goes back to my time in the rock and roll, or are you playing today's stuff, or what are you playing?
Well, we're playing the today's hits on Kiss, but now on 106.1 The Eagle, that is your time to shine over there, So
I think she's saying I'm old.
no, I would never say that. Never. Yeah.
So every day you're doing the Kiss FM, but you also do a weekend show on Country Giant?
Yeah. So I do that on Sunday afternoons on the Country Giant. And pretty much all of us, if there's a fill-in spot, or if somebody's taken off and we need somebody to fill in, we all just jump in wherever we're needed. So you can pretty much hear us on all of our stations in some form or fashion, whether it's an actual show, commercials, imaging, whatever it may be. We're on all of them.
You're the voice of a lot of the commercials on the radios.
I try not to be. I produce all of them too,
Yeah.
right? And I try to keep myself off commercials, but sometimes they ask for you. Sometimes there's nobody else there, and you just kind of have to go with it. But I do try to spread the love as much as possible, even if it doesn't sound like that all the time.
Is it, we're doing a show here, and you're going to edit it, and you're going to
Yeah.
take out all the bad stuff, and it's going to
And
sound great.
yeah.
But when you're on the radio during the day like that, and you're doing a live show, is that difficult?
Live is difficult. Now, I'll be honest, we're not live all the time.
Yeah.
But I will say we just got done with the egg hunt. That was a whole day, like 8 hours of live radio. That is tough to do. Anybody who does live radio, it is mentally tough, physically and mentally tough, even though you're not really physically doing anything. Because you're live,
Yeah.
you can't take it back.
No.
And that's the terrifying part. And you got to find the filler. That was the one thing I think I struggled with getting into the business, is talking to myself. I mean, literally, that's all I do all day is
You're
talk
in a
to myself.
studio by yourself, and
Yeah.
you're just talking.
Yeah, and at first I thought, this is so silly. Like, you're in here talking to yourself. So I would literally write down everything I was going to say before I said it. And that took, so to do a show took forever for me.
Yeah.
And like I said, it wasn't great. I'm surprised I kept a job, to be honest. I didn't transition as well as I would have liked looking back. But then you just kind of learn that, you almost have like a different persona in there with you. So it's not like you're talking to yourself.
You're the radio personality over here when you're in there.
Yeah.
You're not actually Erika, you're Rae Rae.
Right. Yeah. And you do have like a little perception versus reality thing. Most of my life is the same. I'm essentially the same person, but some of it you just try to keep private if you can. And, for the most part, though, I would say I'm pretty genuine on the air of who I am. Like I said, I talked about muting the family group text the other day, and I had a text yesterday from a cousin that's like, "I mute it too, but don't tell them," So I think the more real you can be, the more positive feedback you get from people. So I try to be authentic, as they say.
When you think about your career, and especially doing live radio like that, is there Is there any, and I'm not talking about bad moments, but funny moments? Is this stuff that may have happened that sticks out in your mind that you say, oh, I remember when this happened or this happened?
I think one of the most, I guess, memorable things I remember is when we switched from Magic to 98.5 Kiss FM in 2013. That was a big day for all of us, and nobody knew what was happening besides all of us in the building. And we just got such positive feedback from that. And I think I'll always remember that. People were just so excited, and that made you even more excited. And also it made you feel special because it was like you're in this little group of, cool people because you're on the Kiss staff and you're at Kiss FM. And, and nothing was wrong with Magic, but it was time for a change, and but I think I'll always remember that. And it's hard to believe that was 12 years ago at this point.
Everything is so computerized now in radio. I mean, we were just talking back, I saw the medleys the other day, and you go back to WHUB and everything was so manual and having to do everything. Everything's so computerized. Is it hard to keep up with and making sure everything's clicked right?
Everything's digital now. So I will say it works great when it works great, we hardly have to do anything manually anymore. You can manually insert a commercial, but you're probably not going to manually record a song in like you could during the day. That I'm sure Philip will talk about on his show back in the day, loading the reels and all of that. So it's tough in the regards of if it goes down, if the software goes down, if the internet goes down, if power's out, even with backup generators, sometimes that limits us. Yeah. But for the most part, technology has made our jobs
easier, right? In
a lot of ways. It automates a lot of things that even when I started 15 years ago was not there. So that's exciting. That right there, this Rodecaster Pro would take up this whole table 15 years ago. Huge, so the technology's been great, and I see it just getting better as we progress.
As we go forward.
Yeah.
Thanks for everything you do for me on my show. Thanks for everything that you do for the radio stations. If you want to catch Rae Rae, she's on Kiss FM during the midday. Check her out, and thanks for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Hey, that's our show for this week. Hope you have a great rest of your week, and may God continue to bless Putnam County.